Night had fallen upon Umuohia like a thick cloak of shadows. The moon, pale and watchful, hovered above the clustered thatched roofs as though it feared what the darkness concealed. Crickets chirped without rest, but even their music could not soothe the storm swirling inside young Chizaram's heart. It was the night before her 16th birthday, the night the spirits were said to whisper destinies into the ears of the living. Chizaram knelt beside the village stream, scooping handfuls of cool water to wash her face. She paused to stare at her reflection, soft brown eyes that held innocence and courage, a face framed by stubborn curls that refused to be tamed. Everyone said she took her mother's beauty, her father's strength, and the ancestors' blessing. Everyone, except her own sister. Chibuike, older by 2 years, stood with a beauty just as striking, but spoiled by envy like a fresh fruit turned sour. Where Chizaram smiled, she hissed. Where Chizaram shone, she dimmed. And tonight, she watched from the shadows, hands clenched so hard her nails bit into her palms. Their mother had once whispered a dangerous truth: jealousy is a fire that burns the one who holds it. But jealousy had become Chibuike's closest companion. Chizaram rose with a sigh, clutching the small cowrie necklace her mother had left behind before death stole her away. She whispered a prayer. Mama, guide me. Tomorrow, they will read my destiny. Let it not bring shame. She turned to leave, and that was when she saw them. 2 strangers stood a few feet away. Cloaked in dark woven fabrics, their faces hidden beneath cowled hoods. They bore the scent of dust and danger. Before she could scream, a cloth covered her mouth. Her struggling limbs grew weak as sleep dragged her into darkness. Dawn came, blistering and bright, but Chizaram was not there to greet it. The village square buzzed with confusion. A child missing on the eve of her destiny reading. It was an omen no one wanted to face. Her father, Ozoemena, chief hunter of Umuohia, roared orders, his voice thunderous with fear. Search the river banks. Search the farmlands. My daughter must be found. Chibuike wept bitterly beside him, her cries loud and dramatic. But no tear reached her cold, triumphant heart. Finally, she thought. Finally, Chizaram is gone. Now the blessings, the praise, the future, all belong to me. When Chizaram awoke, the world around her rocked side to side. The air smelled of salt. Waves crashed loudly. She was tied inside a wooden boat, wrists burning from ropes. The 2 strangers spoke in hushed tones. We deliver her in Port Harcourt, one said. And we get double payment, the other replied. Kidnappers. She struggled again, but the ropes only dug deeper, pain biting her skin. As fear tightened its grip, a memory surfaced, her grandmother's warning voice, firm as the earth itself. When destiny calls a child, even chains cannot stop her feet from walking. Chizaram drew a shaky breath. Who are you? She whispered, though her voice trembled. One man turned his shadowed face toward her. His tone was cold, businesslike. You were sold. That is all you need to know. Sold. Who would? Her heart dropped, and her mind saw clearly the smack Chibuike wore last night. Could her own blood? Tears spilled, not of weakness, but of betrayal. The boat journey felt endless. When land finally appeared, the men seized her and marched her inland. The city roared with noises she had never heard, engines, buses, shouting traders, a world bigger and fiercer than her quiet village. They shoved her into a large compound with high walls shut against freedom. Other girls stood there, some crying, others lifeless with resignation. A female guard dragged Chizaram forward. New one, she barked. You belong to Madam Onyi now. Madam Onyi, a name whispered in criminal corners, the woman who traded human lives like cattle. Chizaram's heart hammered. Was this where her fate would die? But destiny is not a river that flows backward. As the compound gates clanged shut, Chizaram felt the breeze shift, sudden, cold, unnatural. The ground beneath her feet hummed, like the heartbeat of something ancient. Then she saw her. A tall elderly woman in white wrappers appeared at the gate's edge, her eyes glowing faintly like embers. No one else seemed to notice her presence. The stranger's voice floated on the wind, soft yet powerful. Child of the ancestors, you do not belong here. Chizaram blinked, the woman vanished. Shock prickled her skin. Was it a spirit? A guardian? A warning? Before she could gather her thoughts, Madam Onyi herself strode into the yard, a tall woman draped in gold and power. Her smile held no warmth. She studied Chizaram like one examines a new goat before slaughter. You, she said, lifting Chizaram's chin. There is something about you. A fire in your eyes. You will bring me wealth. She snapped her fingers. Prepare her for tonight. Tonight. Chizaram's pulse raced. A guard dragged her toward a dark hallway, but a sudden commotion erupted at the entrance. A man burst in, panting. Madam. Soldiers are searching the area. They say they are hunting for a missing village girl, one blessed by the ancestors. Every head turned. Chizaram froze. Madam Onyi's eyes widened, then narrowed into suspicion. Slowly, dangerously, she turned back to Chizaram. You, she whispered. Who exactly are you? Chizaram swallowed hard, fear and destiny crashing together like two storms. Because even she did not know the full answer. Not yet. Will Chizaram's true identity be revealed, or sealed forever? Madam Onyi's gaze bored into Chizaram like a spear seeking the truth buried deep within her soul. Soldiers. A girl blessed by the ancestors. The whispers of power carried by the wind. Nothing about this was ordinary, and Madam Onyi hated anything she could not control. She signaled sharply. Lock her in the inner room. No one touches her until I say so. The guards dragged Chizaram away, pushing through iron doors until they reached a cramped chamber lit by a single flickering lantern. The walls bore scratches, desperate marks left by those who once prayed for escape. The door clanged shut, plunging her into near silence. Chizaram pressed her forehead against the wall, breath trembling. She thought of her father's laughter, his pride when he called her his little lioness. She thought of her mother's soft hands and the cowrie necklace she treasured. And then, the memory that stabbed deepest, Ebereki's last look. That bitter satisfaction in her sister's eyes. Why? What had she ever done except love her? She wiped her tears. Crying would not free her. Fear would not save her. She repeated her grandmother's words like a shield. A seed buried in darkness still grows toward the sun. A sudden metallic click jolted her. The door creaked open slightly, but not enough for a person to enter. Chizaram tensed. A whisper seeped into the room like smoke. PSSSST, girl. Girl from the village. Slowly, a face appeared through the gap, a young boy with sharp eyes, patched clothes, and curiosity that glowed brighter than fear. I'm Chibuike, he said quietly. I cleaned this place, and I saw when they brought you in. Chizaram stepped closer. Why are you helping me? He frowned. Because I know what it means to be dragged away from home. They took me months ago. His voice cracked. I cannot escape. But maybe, you can. Her heart squeezed for him. If I leave, you will come with me. He shook his head hard. No. They will kill my sister if I try. She is still inside the other compound. But you, he paused, eyes scanning her face. There is something different about you. Madam knows it too. Chizaram swallowed. Do you believe in spirits? Chibuike smacked weakly. This is Africa, spirits believe in us. She managed a tiny smile. He slipped a small knife through the gap in the door. Hide this. It may help when the time comes. Before she could thank him, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed. Chibuike vanished like smoke. The door slammed shut again. Chizaram clutched the knife to her chest. It wasn't much, but it was hope. And hope was enough to start a war. Inside the grand sitting room, Madam Onyi paced, rage coiling through her like a venomous snake. The man who had delivered the news bowed nervously. If soldiers discover her here. Madam Onyi raised a hand. He fell silent. Tell the clients from the upper north, she said coldly, that the girl will be transferred tonight. She is not meant for local hands. And the other girls? They remain. But that one, she sneered, she is trouble wrapped in innocence. A guard entered. Madam, the spirit woman, she has been seen near the wall again. The room froze. Spirit woman. Madam Onyi's face paled for the first time. For a moment, she looked like the frightened girl she once was, chased through forest by enemies her greed had created. She hissed, voice trembling with concealed fear. Bring the native doctor. If a spirit is involved, we must fight spirit with spirit. Meanwhile in Umuahia, Ozoemena's anguished search had reached madness. He had not eaten since the night his daughter disappeared. His voice was hoarse, his soul bleeding grief. I failed her, he whispered, standing before the shrine of the ancestors. The village chief, Igwe Okafor, placed a firm hand on his shoulder. We are still searching. Have faith. But Ozoemena's heart was not easily soothed. The chief priest of the shrine, a tall man wrapped in red cloth, stepped forward. His staff hit the earth with a thunderous thud. Your daughter yet lives, he declared. The spirits shield her. But danger coils around her like a python waiting to strike. The hunters around them murmured anxiously. What must we do? Ozoemena pleaded. The priest shut his eyes, his voice ancient. When the moon bleeds red, her path will return to the one who gave her life, and the one who seeks her death. Ozoemena's fist clenched. Ebreki stood at the edge of the crowd, and her knees nearly buckled. Had the priest seen into her heart? Did he know what she had done? Her breath came in sharp, terrified bursts as guilt gnawed at her. But guilt was weaker than fear of exposure. She steadied herself and glanced at her father's grieving back. No one must ever know. Back in the dark, Chizaram had not slept a moment. Every sound made her flinch. Every whisper of wind made her wonder if the spirit woman was near. Suddenly, drums. Rhythmic. Deep. Ritualistic. The air thickened. Shadows flickered along the walls. Chants rose, harsh, ancient syllables that crackled with power. Something, no, someone, was coming. Magic. The door burst open. A man stepped inside, shirtless, skin smeared with chalk, charms dangling from his neck. His eyes glowed eerily. The native doctor. He stared at her for a long, disturbing moment. You, he murmured. You carry a mark. A destiny too large for your own body. Chizaram stepped back, pulse racing. Stay away from me. The man smiled slowly, wickedly. You were meant to be a sacrifice. But you will be much more valuable. She clutched the hidden knife. What do you want from me? He pointed a bone charm toward her, voice rising like thunder. The blood of the chosen one calls to the spirits. And tonight, A gust of wind slammed into the room, scattering dust. The walls shook. A ghostly figure formed behind the native doctor, the same elderly woman in white. Her voice was a storm. "Touch her, and I will drag your soul into the deepest pits of the ancestors' wrath." The native doctor gasped and stumbled backward, terror distorting his face. Chizaram's eyes widened. The spirit woman lifted a hand, and the iron chains around Chizaram fell to the floor with a loud clang. For the first time since her capture, Chizaram was free. The spirit stepped close, her voice gentler now. "You must run, child. Destiny waits for no one." "But, where do I go?" Chizaram whispered. The spirit's eyes glowed brighter, her words trembling with warning. "Return home, before the jealous one destroys everything you love." Chizaram's heart slammed in her chest. The jealous one. Chibuike. Before she could breathe, the ground shook violently, guards shouting, the compound in chaos. The spirit began to fade. "Go," she commanded. Then her final words sent a chill down Chizaram's spine. "What stalks you now is darker than jealousy." The spirit vanished. The door shattered behind her. Guards charged in with weapons drawn. Chizaram clutched the knife, her destiny blazing like fire in her veins. She ran. If the guards catch her, fate may end before it even begins. But what greater darkness is now haunting her? Chizaram sprinted through the darkness, legs trembling but fueled by raw fear and hope. The compound echoed with angry shouts, guards scattering like wolves deprived of prey. Chibuike's voice whispered in her mind, "Maybe you can escape." She clutched the small knife and dashed toward the back gate. But as she reached it, torches flared, 2 guards lunged. Her heart nearly stopped. On instinct, she ducked beneath a swinging baton and slid across wet ground. The blade flashed in her hand, not to kill, but to cut through the rope securing the gate latch. The gate creaked open. The guards charged again, but suddenly, a deafening crash erupted behind them as part of the compound wall collapsed, dust exploding everywhere. Screams followed. The earth itself seemed determined to aid her escape. Chizaram seized the moment and slipped into the streets of Port Harcourt. The city lights glared like 1,000 watchful spirits. She ran until her lungs burned, until the compound was nothing but a memory choked in smoke. She didn't know exactly where she was going, but she knew where she must go. Home. For 3 days, she traveled, sometimes running, sometimes hiding in night markets, sometimes walking along roads guided only by moonlight. Hunger twisted her stomach, exhaustion clung to her bones, but the cowrie necklace against her chest kept her steady. Finally, the familiar path into Umuahia. But silence met her return. No market noise. No children laughing. No evening drums. The village square was filled with fear. People huddled around burning torches. Hunters stood ready, gripping spears. Women cried into their wrappers. And in the center, Ozoemena knelt, surrounded by elders. A long streak of white chalk marked his forehead, a symbol of loss and impending tragedy. Beside him stood Chibuike, head lowered, pretending sorrow. But beneath the mask, panic churned in her chest like a flood threatening to break its dam. Because the priest had spoken again. He had warned them. A curse rises in Umuahia. Born by envy. Fed by betrayal. Eyes had turned toward Chibuike. Questions had begun to bloom like poisonous flowers. And she knew, if Chizaram returned, her wickedness would be exposed. No, she could not allow that. Chizaram stepped out of the shadows, weary, wounded, but alive. Her father looked up. Time froze. Chizaram, he whispered, voice breaking like dry wood under pressure. She stumbled forward, and he ran to her, gathering her into arms that shook with relief. Tears drenched his face as he pressed trembling kisses into her hair. "My child, my daughter," you returned. The villagers gasped, some falling to their knees. Women ululated in joy, praising the ancestors. But Ebereki, her face drained of color. She had wished her sister dead, yet here she stood, shining like dawn conquering night. The chief priest approached, his staff thudding against the earth. "What hand took you from this land?" he demanded. Chizaram turned, eyes locking onto Ebereki, who trembled like a leaf in harmattan wind. Chizaram's lips parted, but something held her tongue. Something deeper than anger. Something that reminded her of the nights they once shared, laughter and sisterhood before jealousy built its walls. She closed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "I was taken, but not by the village." Ebereki exhaled, relief and guilt tangling into something ugly. The priest's eyes narrowed. "You withhold truth." Chizaram did not deny it. Some battles are not fought in the open. Before more could be said, a wild shriek pierced the air. Guards from Madam Onyi's compound, about 10 of them, stormed the village border, machetes flashing in the torchlight. "We want the girl," one bellowed. Chaos erupted. Women screamed. Hunters raised spears. Ozoemena dragged Chizaram behind him, shielded with his own body. The chief priest lifted his staff. The earth trembled. But then, a chilling laugh sliced through the night. Madam Onyi herself emerged from the shadows, wrapped in dark power, and beside her stood the native doctor, eyes glowing with ritual madness. "You think destiny saved you?" she spat at Chizaram. "No child escapes me." Ebereki's knees buckled. She had not meant for this. Her jealousy had summoned a monster far greater than she imagined. The village braced for slaughter. But the wind whipped violently, torches sputtering, and a glowing figure descended like moonlight falling into flesh. The spirit woman. Her presence was fire and storm and judgment wrapped in ancestral glory. The villagers dropped to their knees in awe. Her voice thundered. "You raise hands against the child of destiny. You challenge the decree of the ancestors." The native doctor screamed as invisible fire engulfed him, his charms unraveling like dying snakes. He collapsed, lifeless. Madam Onyi tried to flee, but the spirit's arm stretched like a ribbon of light, catching her by the throat. "You sold daughters of Africa," the spirit hissed. "Now, the earth will swallow what you stole." The ground opened, a gaping maw of dust and wrath, and Madam Onyi plunged into it, her final scream devoured by the soil she once stained with tears of the innocent. The crack sealed. Silence. The guards dropped their weapons and fled in terror. Only the crackle of torches remained. The spirit turned to Chizaram, voice now soft, carrying both pride and warning. "You returned, and saved your people. But beware, the greatest enemy is not always outside, sometimes, she sleeps beside you." Her gaze pierced Ebereki, who burst into tears, falling to Chizaram's feet. "Sister, forgive me. I was blind. Jealousy consumed my heart. I nearly destroyed you." Chizaram knelt beside her, tears streaming. "We are sisters. Blood may betray, but blood must also heal." She embraced Ebereki, and the village, moved to tears, bore witness to a greater victory than defeating evil. Forgiveness. The spirit faded, leaving behind only her final words. "A girl who walks with destiny never walks alone." Months later, the government shut down Madam Onyi's network. Chibuike and his sister were rescued, and became part of Umuohia, where new family embraced them. Chizaram grew into a woman of wisdom and strength, her name spoken in distant places as the girl who returned with destiny in her hands. Ebereki changed too, humility becoming her cloak. She served, protected, and cherished the sister she once tried to destroy. Because in Umuohia, the elders say, the child who returns home brings prosperity the village never expected. And so it was. Envy destroys the heart that carries it. But love, even wounded love, can build a kingdom. If you enjoyed this story, kindly subscribe to this channel, like, and share to someone that loves stories.